Hey guys, in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about being a student of the weather and different weather apps that I use to basically track weather and to figure out where I'm going and when. Landscape photography is all about light, and light is really all about weather. So when people say good light, basically what they mean is light that is not only adding definition to the landscape by raking across and creating shadows, but it's also about how that light hits the clouds in the sky. Generally speaking, if you have no clouds, you have poor light. Empty skies can really kind of be a drag for landscape photography because when you're shooting wide angle, a lot of times a lot of that frame is taken up by the sky. Of course, you can get around this by shooting more telephoto and doing intimate landscapes, but if you're going for the grand landscape, the grand wide angle image, the sky is very important. So I want to show you guys some of the apps that I use for tracking weather as well as dictating where the light is going to be. So first off, let me say that right now I'm using iPhone, and some of these apps might not be available, or they will be available but in a completely different form on Android. I recently switched from Samsung phones to iPhones, and I've noticed a huge difference in the apps. I find that a lot of the apps are just kind of better on iOS, even though I really didn't want to believe that. It's true. A lot of the apps are just better on iOS, unfortunately. So you might have a slightly different experience than this. So one of the apps that is just kind of my basic go-to app for weather is Weatherbug. You can save different locations, like right now we're looking at the weather in Bend, Oregon. You've got hourly forecasts, you've got 10-day forecasts, and it's all just kind of very basic information. But one of the things that I do like is when you go over to your different maps, especially during storm season where maybe you're chasing lightning or big thunderclouds, one of the layers that you can go to is Storm Tracker. The nice part of this particular layer is that it not only shows you a radar overlay, for example down in this area we got a nice storm going here, but it'll also track lightning strikes. So for example, if we go down here in the Corpus Christi area, looks like they've got some lightning happening here, and if we play we can see the direction that those lightning strikes are going. Weatherbug is a free app, and while it's not the most feature-rich app, it is really simple to use, and it gives you all the basic information and most of what you need. So this is what Weatherbug looks like. Another app that I've really been liking lately is called Storm. This is made by Weather Underground. So this is what Storm looks like. It's another map-based app where you're looking at a map and you have different overlays. Right now we can look at our clouds, we can look at radar, we can look at lightning. But one of the things that I like most about this app is that if we swipe up over where it says hourly, if we swipe up on the hourly forecast, we have these two views here. I can go over to the graph view, and this is going to give us some important information. It's got temperature and stuff, but the most important for us is our cloud cover percentage. So if I press down, press and hold, and swipe this over, it gives us our time. So now we're looking at Tuesday at 7 a.m. We're gonna have Tuesday at 7 a.m. We're gonna have 52% cloud cover, then 73%, then 80%. And this gives you a good idea as to the amount of clouds that you're going to have. That's a really important graphic to know, because when you're looking at other apps, a lot of times they're just going to give you like an icon of big cloud, a little bit of sun poking through, a lot of sun poking through. That's not super useful, but what is incredibly useful is knowing the exact percentage of the cloud cover. So that's what Storm looks like, and I use that for a lot of like my cloud prediction. So another app that I really like that I've been using a lot lately is the Photographer's Ephemeris. So the Photographer's Ephemeris is probably not a new app to you. It's been out for a long time, both a mobile version and a desktop version. It's really good for knowing what time sunrise is, what time sunset is. You can zoom in and see exactly in what direction the sun is going to be given a time of day. But another thing that you can do is on the iOS version, again, I don't think this is available on Android, unfortunately, but on the iOS version, you can enable what is called Skyfire. So when I turn on the Skyfire layer and then click on Sunset, it's going to give me a color overlay. And this overlay is basically a sunset prediction. The warmish red and yellow tones are going to dictate a higher probability of a good colorful sunrise or sunset, and then the cooler tones are going to dictate a lower probability. I've found Skyfire to be fairly accurate, not the most accurate thing in the world, but it's definitely a starting place. And I have had trips where I basically just chased around the map where it was predicted to have colorful skies, and I've found fairly good success with that. Along coastlines, the Oregon coast, and in Iceland, I've found it to not be very accurate because the weather changes so fast, it's impossible to predict. But inland a little bit, where things are a little bit more predictable, I've found it to be fairly accurate, and it's a useful tool. Photographers Ephemeris in general is a very powerful, very useful app for landscape photography because you can zoom in on an area. Let's say we wanted to photograph this gully here or whatever, and I can drop a marker, and it's going to give me the exact sunrise time, sunset time for that exact location. I can scroll through and see exactly where the sun is going to be at what time, as well as moonrise, moonset, moon phase. This app is super powerful. It'll do a whole lot more things than this, but this is kind of the basics, and this is pretty much what I use it for. Another app that I use a lot, especially when I'm in Iceland, this app called My Aurora Forecast. Aurora Forecast is good for obviously predicting KP strengths. So if we look down here, it's obviously got the forecast for the KP strength, which is the strength of the Aurora Borealis or Aurora Australis. Oh, I can't say it. Southern lights, not northern lights. We can look here, we can look by day, we can look by hour. Useful information, but you can also set it up to where it will notify you and alert you if the KP strength is going to be strong. It's also got this map feature where you can look at the map live in real time and see where the lights are happening. So if we're looking, for example, when I was in Iceland, I was looking at this, and I actually noticed that the northern lights were south of us in Iceland that particular night. They were coming very far south. Sure enough, I looked to the south, and there they were. They were dim that night, but it gave me a nice starting place to know like which direction I need to start thinking about trying to find a composition in. Because when you're really far north, the action isn't always to the north. Sometimes it's south, east, or west. Another app that I've been using a lot is called Windy. So Windy is an interesting app because it's kind of an all-in-one app. One of the interesting things about it is that you can actually view different webcams from it. So you see all these little camera icons. If I click on one of these, it's going to take me to a webcam in that area. That can be useful for seeing the amount of snow in an area, or for just getting an idea or a feel for what the sky is looking like. The interesting part of Windy is that, like I said, it's an all-in-one app where we can change what we are looking at. So right now it's set to wind, and we can see the different wind strengths that are happening in the area. And we can also see the wind direction with this moving graphic stuff. But if I switch over to, let's say, clouds, it'll give us an overlay of clouds. We can also switch to waves, which is kind of interesting. So now we can move our little cursor out here, and we can see that right now off the Oregon coast, there's 13-foot waves. And that's really interesting because there's not a lot of surf apps that allow you to just move your cursor like this and change where you're viewing. So I really like Windy as kind of an all-in-one app. This is another free app, and it's got lots of useful information, temperature, clouds, and swell, which is really, really cool. Another app that I use a lot is called Magic Seaweed. This is another surf and tide information app. So for example, we can click on an area that we've saved. It'll tell me the predicted wave height, as well as the swell intervals, 15 seconds, 14 seconds, 13 seconds, etc. But we can also see when high tide and low tide is, all from one app. Very useful, and I use it a lot when I'm shooting seascapes. Another app that I did not mention that lots of people use and love is Photo Pills. I personally don't use it, but it's a very useful app for, especially when you're on location. You can use the augmented reality to see where the sun is going to rise, where the sun is going to set, see where the Milky Way is going to rise. You can change the dates. It's a very useful app. I personally don't use it, but I know lots of people love it. All right, thank you guys so much. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, guys.